Well, hey, thanks again for joining us for another episode of Triple Play. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Brookes Bible College. If you have not heard of Brookes Bible College, you obviously haven't been listening to this podcast because we love them. And we are thankful that they're sponsoring our podcast. If you're somebody looking for a Bible college and anywhere in the Midwest or anywhere across the country, highly recommend them. I don't know if you know this, but the average pastors a church of 75 to 100 people. So that's the average one in America. If you're coming out with a normal Bible degree, you're going to have $100,000 worth of debt. Okay? Sound like you can pastor a church of 75 to 100 people with $100,000 worth of debt? Probably not. So that's why Brookes Bible College is great. You're going to get a great conservative, Christ-centered Bible degree in biblical studies or counseling degree, but you won't have all that debt. And when you go to be a missionary or to serve the Lord wherever He has you, not having that debt can be a huge difference in ministry. So, long story short, check out Brookes Bible College. Link will be in the show notes, and we'll, I'm sure, post other things, or website and all on this episode. That said, we're excited today. We have a great guest today. We got Tricia Albert. Tricia is with a organization called Sports Crusaders. I was first introduced to Sports Crusaders a little over 20 years ago. So, actually, I say a little over 20 years ago. It's probably more like 25 or plus now, because at the time I had a roommate who said, I'm going to serve this summer mission place called Sports Crusader. And I said, okay. So, and he would show up every so often at the house. Most famously was when he showed up with a ball python. That was always fun. Have you not heard about this story?
I have not heard this story.
I'll make you laugh, Tricia.
Okay.
So I'm talking about Chris. And by the way, Chris does CS Design, who does our intro and outro. So he's still in my life. But Chris was my roommate at the time. We had a townhome. And he's serving as Sports Crusader. And in the summer, one weekend, he decided, I guess while he was there, I don't know what compelled him, but he got a ball python. So he brings it to our house. The first funny part was he drops it off and leaves. So I went to, I won't forget it because I went to, I think it was a Reba McEntire concert that night. But before I left, I was really concerned. So I called my dad, and my dad made a top for it. He drilled a bunch of holes because I thought the thing was going to get out of this, it kept looking like it was going to get out of the enclosure that he had, because it was moving up the glass and all, and I'm like, okay, so what am I going to do? So I come home, my dad's got the thing on the top, but all night long I was paranoid. So I wound up grabbing college books and putting them on there to make sure this thing wasn't going to get out, because I've caught snakes as a kid, never slept one within my room. I mean, I just caught them and, as a country kid, and gave them to the farmers, or killed them. And, so it was a very unique, but the funny part of that was we also had another roommate, named Eric. After that snake showed up, the rent was there, but Eric was never there. He was our roommate that paid rent and never showed up again. He saw that ball python and he was done.
I would have been too.
It was the funniest thing.
Man.
So that's my story about Chris, ball python, and my summer being introduced to Sports Crusaders, because he was coming back and forth. That being said, that was, I think, about the time you were starting to really get involved in Sports Crusaders. I know you were at that time, but I don't know a ton about you. I know that you know the Lord. I know you've been involved with Sports Crusaders, and that's about all I know. And I don't really honestly know a ton about Sports Crusaders history. I remember bits and pieces that Chris told me about the founder and all, but I want you to explain to everybody what that is and what your vision is, because I've helped support it over the years. I think it's a great ministry. I've obviously seen the fruit of what it does, both from how you guys work with college students to your in people, the students that you do these camps for. But tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll work into the ministry aspect. So where'd you grow up? St. Louis question. Where'd you go to school? And then, give us a little bit about your testimony, and then we'll work our way into how you got involved in Sports Crusaders.
Sure. Well, thank you, first of all, for letting me be here and talk about my favorite thing in the world. Like I told you, Josh, this last week, that I could talk for hours about Sports Crusaders because it's just become my life, and it's I've gotten to grow up in the ministry and pretty excited about that. I grew up in Jefferson City, and born, raised, never really left far from there as far as where I live, because now I'm just north of the river, and we always say we're over the river and through the woods from Jeff City. And if there was a suburb of Jeff City, that's where I live. But our offices are in Holt Summit, so we're right there at Union Hill Baptist Church in Holt Summit, Missouri, and we call that home. And,
Okay.
But I went to Jefferson City High School, played basketball all my life, it seems. Started when I was in, third or fourth grade, and then played up through high school until mononucleosis took me out. And so I didn't get to go on to college to play, but loved basketball. And our families would choose their vacation spot depending on where I went to basketball camp. So that was pretty much my life. Eat, sleep, drink basketball. And then I met my husband in high school, and we dated from the time we were 16, 17 years old, and went to Lynn Tech College as soon as we got out of high school, and then got married out of college. We graduated in May of 93 and got married in the fall of 93.
So did you both go to that college?
Yes, we
That's
did.
become a really popular college these days. I've known a lot of my friends' kids that are going there to become electricians, work on semis. I'm trying to remember. I've had one doing stage and light sound type stuff. I mean, I'd never heard of that institute. And in the last 3 to 5 years, I now know 2 or 3 students every year they're going there now.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we went there were 2 campuses. I was on the high school campus learning an accounting degree, got my associate's degree in accounting. And my husband got automotive associate's degree in automotive technology. And so his hobby is to work on cars. His full-time job is to work at the Capitol in maintenance. And but he is my biggest cheerleader in ministry. He's raised my son. He was the stay-at-home dad when I would travel to go recruit these students and set the camps and everything. So I could not do this ministry if it wasn't for him, and the steady paying job of a state job, and enabling me to do ministry. And so even though he was never an athlete, he never did play sports. I think he wrestled maybe a semester or a year, but athletics is not his cup of tea. He'll maybe watch a basketball game with me, and he'll go to an occasional St. Louis Cardinals game with me, but he's not he loves athletics. He loves the fact that I like to watch games and things like that, but he's not. It's boring to him.
He'd rather be working on a car.
He'd rather be working on a car. So, but
does he like the Daytona 500 and watching cars run, or does he just like working on them?
He likes working on them, and he likes hearing them drag for drag races and things like that.
So he does. Does he go to drag races or anything like that?
He doesn't go, and he doesn't go to races or anything like that. But he and my son, they spend time in the shop, building engines and having a good time together. And so they're great. My son is now 15 years old, and we were married 15 years when I had him. And so we just celebrated 30 years of marriage. And
congrats.
Thank you. And so when I was, let's see, I was working at the Missouri Baptist Convention in 1990. Let's go back to 1995 to 1998. I worked for the Missouri Baptist Convention in the accounting department, paid bills for the convention. And one day, this big, tall guy by the name of Bobby Shows stopped me in the hallway, and he said, "Hey, do you still play basketball?" And I said, "Well, I try, but I'm coaching middle school basketball at the time." And I said, the older we are, the better we were. So yeah, I could still play. If I wanted to. And he said, "Well, what would you say if I asked you to go to Belarus with me and do some Sports Crusaders camps?" And I said, "What is that? Bella where?" I had no idea where Belarus was. Neither had I ever been on an airplane, especially not out of the country. And so he said we were going to do basketball clinics and teaching Jesus to kids through basketball camps. And I was like, that's a thing? I can't even believe this,
Jesus in sports? Come on.
And so I said, my 2 favorite things in the whole world, And so I basically told him that if the money was there, I'd go. And, from then on, the money showed up, and it was a huge, huge miracle in my life, how that story came together.
Just to rewind, obviously you knew Christ by that point. Did you come to know Christ at an early age, later age? Did you grow up in a church? Was your parents Christians? Just give us a little background there.
So I was raised in a Christian home.
Okay.
We were of the Lutheran denomination. So I went to Lutheran school from kindergarten to 8th grade. Then I moved on to high school. Really didn't stay in church because basketball took me away from church. Like, my youth group was like, well, you've chosen basketball over us. So my mom was Baptist, my dad was Lutheran, and I had come to know the Lord when my mom snuck me to a Baptist church over deer season, and while my dad was away hunting. And that was the first time I was exposed to the style of a Baptist church. And but I really felt like I connected there. Like, the word was shared, and I'm certain that the word was shared in the Lutheran church. I don't know. I would zoom out, but for whatever reason, this pastor connected with me. He gave a wonderful sermon, and I went home going, Mom, what's this all about? I love this. I love the style of worship. I love all of this. And so she had a conversation with me about what it meant to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And my dad was very, very open to me making sure that I would stay a part of the local body. And so that happened at 9 years old, so I was kind of the Baptist in the Lutheran school for several years, and I was the only Baptist, and so my sermon notes didn't match anybody else's sermon notes, but it had to come out and go, well, I'm actually a closet Baptist, but all that to say that was all in fun. And then once I went off to high school, the youth group they were not athletic. I was the only athlete in the whole youth group. And so I just threw myself right into Jefferson City High School. I went from 26 in my graduating class of 8th grade at Trinity to 933 freshmen in Jefferson City High School. So if it hadn't been for basketball, I'm afraid I would have been, in the wrong crowd. Basketball pulled me out of all that and gave me purpose, gave me community. It gave me a group of people that I could connect with, because I never saw the folks I went to, parochial school with again, really. But all that to say, I had gotten away from church, gotten away from my relationship with God, until my junior year of high school. I had a wonderful lady from our church that connected with me, came and took pictures of our basketball games, and we watched her films. And she was the one who happened to be from my church and connected with me in a way that I really didn't want her there in my high school career, because she was the one that went before me and, kind of told me what parties to not attend, kind of kept me out of that trouble. She'd call my mom if I was planning on going somewhere that was kind of questionable, and she kind of held me accountable. And so it wasn't until, I kind of had a breaking point, because my junior year, I came down with mono, and I was so sick, and I had just played my first varsity game, and I was so excited, but I was very sick, and I never walked back out onto the varsity court again. I went to practices and that sort of thing, but at Jeff City, once you lose your spot, there's so many other kids that can fill your spot. So I was pretty mad with God at that point. I was like, really? I've spent my whole life, getting better at the sport and trying to have a good sportsmanship and that sort of thing. And I really had made basketball my God more than anything. And so I walked away from basketball for a bit. And then after we got married, was when we went back to church. We got married in the church, but we tried to do everything that we thought our parents, that took our parents 20 years to do. We tried to accumulate all that in the first year of our marriage, and we just didn't have the right direction. And I can remember just being at the lowest of low. Like I lost my job. My husband and I weren't sure we were going to stay married after the first year. Just life was not going well at all. And I remember standing in the basement of our church. My mom was the church cook, and she was listening to my pity party of how bad life was. And I was invited to be a counselor at Youth Development Week, and I hadn't been in church in 2-3 years or more, just Easter, Christmas, and occasionally. So, but right there, I made the decision to go away for a week to be a counselor at a camp for teenage girls, 9th and 10th grade girls, be a mom for 9th and 10th grade girls. And I quickly learned at that week's camp that the students that I was in charge of had a better relationship with Christ than I did. And I remember Christy, my very first night, I was supposed to lead a devotion with these girls, and I was just lost. I was lost. I had literally, when I agreed to go on this camp, I picked up my Bible out of a box at my house and dusted the dust off of it and was just flipping through the Bible going, oh yeah, I've been here, done this, I can do this. And that night, Christy said, Miss Alberts, can I please, lead the devotion tonight? And I'm like, why, yes, you absolutely can, And I listened as she shared this wonderful devotion, and she was 9th grade at the time. And then the very next night had another girl, Miss Alberts, can I do what Christy did last night? And I said, absolutely. Boy, this is getting easy, And by Wednesday night, the Lord had gotten a hold of me, and I realized that I was not where I was supposed to be, and this was not what God had expected out of me and my relationship with Him, that I had walked away. And that night, one of the gentleman that asked me to be the counselor at this camp he asked me, he said, if you died tonight, and Jesus said to you, why should I let you into my heaven? What would you say? And in all of those years of, studying the Bible in school and religion class and going to Sunday school and youth things, I didn't know what the answer was. And so he led me through the scriptures and through especially John 3:16, of course, and telling me that, he loved me. He loved me, and it wasn't about everybody else. It was how he loved me. And that was the first time that I heard the message that Christ died for me and to save me from myself and from all of the stuff that I had put between me and him, and that he was going to redeem me. And man, that night was, I'll never forget that night. And that's when I was called to ministry to be a Sunday school teacher and work with youth. I swore to my mom, I was just like, I just don't know what to do. I said, I don't know where to start. And before we even left that camp, that former youth pastor put a quarterly in my hand and he said, you start tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. And so that's when I felt like that's where, God said, come back. And I did, and my life was completely different after that. The very next day, we went back from camp. First Sunday, I'm walking into a Sunday school classroom trying to figure out how I'm going to do the Sunday school lesson, and we ended up talking about the camp and all the different testimonies around camp. And it just was I'll never forget that group of girls, because that has been, a huge impact in my life. And those girls are now married with their own children. So, and probably leading youth groups somewhere. So that was my journey to then only 18 months later, Bobby Show's inviting me to go on this mission trip. And I was just like, what is that?
I was going to ask you, how'd you get the job with the Missouri Baptist Convention? Because obviously, now you're doing the Sunday school thing and you're starting to, so was that pretty much right after you started applying? And
yeah, pretty much. I was in a job that was doing non-traditional accounting for an automotive group. And since I had my degree with, from Lynn Tech, those types of places just really want to have those folks that have learned it in the non-traditional field. And so that's kind of where I found my mark. And then one of the ladies from church worked at the Baptist building, and she said, "Hey, I think there's an opening in accounting. Would you like to apply for that?" And I said, "Sure." And I applied, and lickety split, I was hired. And I thought, okay, well, this is God's hand, and just me trusting him for the next steps. And that wasn't something that just came right away. But man, once I started just focusing in on what God wanted for my life, it was just like he just opened every door that needed to be opened. And for him to allow me to meet Bobby Shows, that was huge. Bobby ended up being the mentor to me for over 20 years and just kind of showed me the way. So.
He just had a way about him, didn't he?
Oh, man. Nobody ever told Bobby Shows no. I mean, he just had this way of having folks feel the call of God, on their life and to be obedient. He was tall in nature, because he was a former basketball player from Mississippi State, and he was a big guy. We always joke that my nose came to his navel. So I don't know how tall he was, but I'm short. So I know he was close to 7 foot. So 6'10", I think.
I know he looked down on Chris, and I know Chris was tall. So,
yes.
I was like, But everybody around here, see, Scott's not here today, but if he were here, I'm shorter than everybody I'm around usually. Like, all these sports guys are all in their sixes, and I'm barely, I'm like 5'11" and whatever, and I'm always like,
Right. How's the weather up there?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a measly 5'4"3/4. I got to claim that 3/4. But I was shooting guard, and I knew that colleges probably weren't going to be interested in me anyway. But God, just blessed me with the opportunity to go on that mission trip with Bobby. And it was like that was another pivotal point in my life when I'm sharing the gospel through a basketball clinic, and it was right there in Belarus that God said, "I want you to do this full time."
So how did that? So now you go to your husband. You're like, "I got a paying job, but now it's going to go to ministry stuff." And I'm sure along the way, he's his life is shifting with yours, right? I mean, he's watching all this. He's being curious. Was he a Christian at this point, or was he?
He had been raised in a Christian home as well.
Okay.
And so, but he, and as well as I had not been in church. But then after I came back from Belarus, I shared my testimony in the Sunday evening service. And through the course of all these years, he then accepted Christ and rededicated his life after just seeing how God had changed me.
Yeah.
And but that's his testimony. I will let him at some point share.
Yeah.
But,
I'm not trying to take his thunder, but I'm imagining as we're talking that, okay, young married couple, he's coming along with this journey, and all of a sudden you're going to him, you're like, "I had this incredible experience. I'm able to use the gift that God gave me that I spent years honing and developing in my youth. And I'm seeing this great opportunity to take my current passion, which is sharing the Lord and loving on Jesus, and how can I not? Because I've been freed from all this guilt and everything that I thought I had to carry around. And I want other people to experience this. So I'm going to take a jump because I'm really feeling God calling me this way. And I'm going to join this. And by the way, this guy who's in charge of this is a man, and he's almost 7 foot tall. I imagine there's some conversations going on here, but all that said, did you fundraise or did Bobby say, "Come on, I've got a salary"? What was how was that? And I know obviously now you're in a bigger position. Did you first come on as somebody who was helping, or were you an accountant? What was your initial position? Okay,
so that trip to Belarus was in 1998, August of 98, and he had started Sports Crusaders. First talking about it in 93, with the first camps being in the summer of 1994. And so he had not taken this ministry out from under the Missouri Baptist Convention until the year 2000. And so I continued to work for the Missouri Baptist Convention for a while, and then I moved on to a different position after the Belarus trip. And then when he decided that it was God's calling for him to take this out from under the Missouri Baptist Convention in the year 2000, he contacted my old boss at the convention and said, "Hey, who would you recommend to be my bookkeeper for this start of this ministry?" And he said, "Oh, Tricia Alberts, no, hands down." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I took her on a trip. I think I would use her." And I had gone on other trips with him, but he hadn't thought about the fact that I did accounting, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, you think of, that's the basketball gal, she's helping out, and you're doing this. So you're doing other trips, and you weren't involved in ministry, but it was more as just helping out with with the college students, basically. So
right.
And at this point, Bobby Shaw started this in '93, but the first camps were in '94, correct? Okay. Right. And it was underneath the Southern Baptist umbrella until 2000. Just trying to make sure I understand this. Okay. And that's interesting because around 2000, the Southern Baptists have a whole bunch of things going on politically behind the scenes. And so you see a lot of breakups and it made sense probably to disassociate yourself, because now if you don't, you got all these different groups, and it's going to really start to isolate
absolutely
who you're ministering to and from, and so I definitely understood that. So go ahead. So now you're on, so around 2000 is when you come on board?
Yes. So 2000, I am working at that point for the Missouri Department of Transportation in the signing and striping. And so I was not happy in my job. But it paid the bills. And when he called me in 2000 and said, "Hey, it's happening. Could you do my bookkeeping nights and weekends?" And I said, "Sure." So that first summer out, I did all of his payroll and everything, nights and weekends. And it just got to the point where he said, "I really would like for you to be on my board of directors." Well, they voted on me to be on the board of directors. I think it was in October of 2001. And by January, I had come on staff. Because I couldn't let them. He was at the board meeting going, "I need a secretary. I need somebody full time that can do all this bookkeeping." And when he left the convention, he had support staff at the convention. And when he started the ministry in his basement, it was just him and his dog. And so then I would meet up with him and do deposits and do all of his payroll by hand, mind you. Oh my goodness, I will never do that again. But automated accounting is the way to go. But all that to say, he and I were talking about what it would take for me to come on staff. And he said, "I don't have a salary for you. I need you to raise support if you want to do this. But yes, I want you to be that person." And so I went to my husband, and he was like, "Yes, this is something that you need to do." And he said, "I've got a good job. I've got insurance, let's do this, but this is where the budget needs to be." And so I went to my boss at the state, and he was so understanding. And he said, "You are a different person when you come back from those mission trips." And he said, "I know where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be in ministry." And he said, "I guess you need to raise some support here, right?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, how about you stay on for a while and hire your replacement? What's the last possible date that you can, leave us and work full time before you need to be there full time?" And so this was in October of 2001. And I said, "Well, by May 1 for sure." And so I did. I stayed on and hired my secretary that I had there. She did a phenomenal job taking over my position, and they just let me stay there and work until May, Tuesdays and Thursdays. That helped me have some money to bank. And then when I walked out of the door of Missouri Department of Transportation, my husband had some news for me when I got home that I wasn't expecting. I had deacons tell me, "Why are you so stressed about this?" That was stressful to think, okay, I'm leaving my benefits, I'm leaving everything to go into ministry, and I'm not sure how God's going to provide. And I had deacons that worked in the engineering area where I was that would say, why are you stressed about this? What makes you think that the money won't come through your husband? And I said, because always made more money than my husband, it was kind of a pride thing. And so I get home that night after walking out of MoDOT, and he said, are you ready for this? And I said, what? He said, I got a new job today. I said, no kidding. I didn't even know you applied. And he said, well, I was asked to be on this job. I didn't have to apply. And so that's when he went to work for the House of Representatives, and his pay raise was half of what I needed yet in order for the budget to work. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So then we go to Bobby to tell him that the budget is almost there, that I'm just shy of about $7,500 or $8,000, I think is what I was shy. And he said, well, I am so glad you came over, because I have news for you that our board just raised $7,500 for you. And I was just like, okay. It was like, as soon as I was obedient to walk out of that comfort, right, that the Lord had it all there waiting for me. And it was just, man, it was huge to my faith. It was huge to my husband's faith. And it was just really, God's hand in all of it.
That's awesome. So explain to people, because we've been talking now for a little while about Sports Crusaders, but we haven't got into what this ministry does. So what was Bobby's vision for Sports Crusaders? What did he foresee? Because we're talking sports, we're talking Jesus. Obviously, you talked about going to Belarus to do a camp. What does Sports Crusaders do? You're on staff now, and now you're the director.
Now I'm the director. I have been since 2010. And so I've been with Bobby since the beginning of him coming out of the convention. And for a long time, it was just me and him. And then we added Chris and Randy Curlis and Becky Uffman. And we had a huge staff there for a while. And but now here we are. We'll be celebrating 30 years of ministry in May. We'll have a big gathering and big party there in Holt Summit. So we'll be inviting folks to that. But what we're celebrating is Bobby's vision was to be able to share Jesus through basketball camps. That's where it started, was in basketball camps. And so when he left the convention, he was just doing basketball and soccer, and I think cheerleading maybe. But by the time we got established as a ministry, God expanded it into 5 different sports. And so what we do is we connect with the local church. Okay. And we do all of our camps in and around churches so that they can use it as an outreach event for their church.
So you got a church somewhere, let's say Missouri. I'm just going to, but I know you do them all over the place. It's not local to just Missouri. But let's say somebody in Missouri has a church and they call you and they're like, hey, we've heard about Sports Crusaders. How can we use you guys? So you work with them. Mm-hmm. Do they have kids that staff it, or do you guys staff it?
We staff it. We hire all the college students and train them extensively for a week-long training before we send them out in the summer. And this is a summer program. Bobby wanted to make sure that we trained folks to share the gospel and also to multiply ourselves, so we train the college students, send them to the individual churches in teams of 4 college students, usually 2 guys, 2 girls, send them to a church. The church houses and feeds our kids, our students, and they promote the camp, because the local church knows their community and their church better than we do. And so what we want to do is put those missionaries in their church with their families, let them love on the college students for a week, establish relationships with them, as well as then our students are pouring into the children. Usually kindergarten through 6th grade is about our age group of students that attend the camps. But they do a quality camp in 5 different sports. Pick a team for whichever sport.
What sport?
Basketball. We have basketball, cheerleading, softball, baseball, soccer, and volleyball.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That way, if people are listening, they're hearing this and they're wanting to get involved, they can do that. Do the college kids fundraise, or do you guys provide that salary? So if college kids are listening in and they're like, I'm hearing this ministry, I go to Mobab, or I go to Brookes Bible College, or
yes.
Any of the other, Christian colleges. I would take any college, but, I'm thinking Christian colleges. I know you guys probably target those a little heavier, but What would do they got a fundraiser? Do you guys provide that?
Yes and yes. We provide them a stipend each week, and then we allow them, because they're missionaries for the summer, to raise more support for their summer, because we obviously aren't funded enough to pay them what they need to make in the summer. College students need to make a lot of money to survive, but we do pay a stipend of $200 a week, plus travel, and then the churches house and feed them. Leadership gets paid a little bit more than that as the team leader. And so we do training.
If the churches that host them want to do a one-time gift to them, they could do that too, right?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. So the churches that we contract with, they pay us to have the camp, and then they charge the kids something to come to camp, and then all the fees that we have from the church then go straight back out to our college students. So
okay.
Yes. So it's really a lot of fun. We do the 5 different sports. I hire about 30 students a summer, and that does not include our volunteer kids that go overseas. So like this summer, we'll have another Guadalajara trip. We've been invited to Toronto. There's other opportunities to Poland. We used to be in Ukraine, of course, before the war. So we've been in 14 different countries. And that has it's been a great ride. I mean, just getting to see the different cultures and how sports and a basketball will get you into places that the Bible will not. And then just being able to meet them, that common ground of like Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:22, I have become all things to all people so that he will let me share Christ with them. And so we're finding common ground with folks through the sports, and the kids listen to those college kids. Like, they idolize those college kids, but the college kids that we select, we want them to first love Jesus with all their heart and not be afraid to share him with others. And second of all, they got to be able to teach their sport, because we want a quality camp. And then thirdly, they got to love kids, because they're going to be a human jungle gym all summer long. So the other leg of our ministry that just began probably about 5 years ago is we now provide recreation teams that go to associational camps, and they do the outdoor rec, like the playground games and octoball, tons of octoball, and about 5,000 water balloons each. So they will help out associational camps and spend the night. So that's a whole nother opportunity for recreation missionaries to serve. And so that's just another one of the ventures that we've had the Lord open the door for. And then newly this year, we're launching an esports team. We're doing video game camps and doing tournaments at the end of the week of that video game camp. So these are things that I've been praying for, that we can make a year-round ministry rather than just summer. And the Lord has provided. So
that's really, really cool. So the esports is a very big growing thing. I don't think the church is even close to being understanding this thing. Mm-hmm. So you guys are going in with this whole new concept. I know we've talked a little bit, but have you gotten a little bit of like pushback? Because it is a new thing. I mean, anytime the church deals with something new, there's usually a little pushback, because they're not, going from, an organ and a piano to having a guitar and, a bass guitar and some keyboard in there. That was a big deal for the church going, shift between the 50s and through the 80s, 90s. And then, just thinking about, different aspects of the church of taking in arts and different things going on in the culture. Esports, for those who aren't listening, by the way, because I know a little bit about this, because my daughter is a freshman in high school, and she's part of the esports team at her high school. And basically, it's online gaming. So online gaming, just like sports, there's a winner, there's losers, they play online. So E standing for electronic, but it's sports games. So you can play football, you can play different sports games. We actually do those kind of nights with our middle schoolers, where we'll take a game, bring it, put it up, and have them play each other, and everybody gets to pick a team, and you play half of a game, and we'll do a round robin type of thing to get a winner. But so you do tournament styles. But all that said, for those who are listening, just want to kind of give you a little bit of understanding what an e-game is. Have you had a little bit of pushback on that?
Absolutely. If you bring in students who, and I say students, the camps are usually for the smaller kids, but then the tournament launches into a whole nother age group than what our normal sports camps and experiences. So you're bringing in now
probably middle school through high school, right?
12 years old. We had some 30-year-olds at the tournament. So, I mean, you've got a huge span in age. They don't look like us. They don't talk like us. Some of them don't even realize that there's a respect nature for the church itself. It's kind of interesting. Somebody put it the other day that it seems like our sports camps are teaching the kids to love Jesus more, but our esports venue is teaching the gamer not to hate church. And I thought that was a very interesting perspective. But what we need is, we know that there are Christian gamers out there, and we need them to step up and help. Just like my son pointed out, my son has never been a part of Sports Crusaders. He's attended the camps out of obligation to mom being the executive director, even wore his cowboy boots to basketball camp while I was in Ukraine. So, I get these notes saying your son is in cowboy boots playing basketball. But now that we're doing esports, that's his love language. And when he's coming to me, he's like, I think I know what you're trying to do with this ministry, Mom. We can try to keep it clean on Discord. And so he showed me what his conversations are like, and he doesn't play with those guys that don't have the same values with him. And he's good, but the only way they're going to play with him, or he's going to play with them, is if they clean it up. Like, he just wants to, what are you, one of those Jesus freaks type thing? And he's like, I am a Christian. Yes. But it's just like anything else we do. It's as we go, being who Christ made us to be, and not being afraid to share him with others, and to stand up for what we believe and what we value. So this is from one end of the spectrum to the other, where our vision is to eventually have fund Christian streamers that are the gamers, that, that way there is content that the gamers can go to, and it be clean and family friendly, and there would be some sort of message that would be shared across the board with other gamers. So I have guys on my staff that know way more better than I do about all of this. But that's what I prayed for. I was like, I knew this needed to be somewhere we could get in to do ministry, but I said, God, you got to send me the guys that know it. And here came two guys. Like, you got to be careful what you pray for.
Well, and for those who are listening, you mentioned Discord. Discord is very popular with gamers. It's a way for them to communicate back and forth while playing the game. And you can record your game through Discord and play it back, or have live tournaments through Discord. So, I'm familiar with all of it. I don't do e-gaming. I have to be honest with you. I don't do e-game, but my kids, I got a college kid. I've got 2 high school kids. My freshman in high school right now is big on e-gaming, but they've all done it. They've all, been on Discord. They've all engaged in this culture. And when you mentioned that the other day, my eyes got big, because as somebody who loves students, which I do, I just love kids. This generation's they're growing up, I was telling somebody the other day, I said, when we were first getting introduced to phones, when my kids were younger, we were still at a point, like, I was telling a story how we were coming home from Mexico, and we had to wait in the airport. And they go, and I had these young kids, and he goes, and you didn't have iPads? I said, no, they weren't even around yet. I said, this is like, 05, 06. I said, I probably had an iPhone. But remember, this is like generation one. I mean, we're just being able to listen to music and have it on your phone was like the cool thing. Apps were very primitive, and, internet wasn't necessarily in everywhere you went. So I said, you gotta go back a little bit. And I said, so no, we sat there. I said, but this generation, my younger kids, they're at a much younger age. They're engaged in all these things. And, you know, if I want to discipline one of my kids, it's not like go to your room. It's not you got another chore. I mean, I can do those things, and certainly at times I do. But the biggest thing that really hits them, you've lost your gaming time. I mean, they're what? You know, like they get upset because it is so addictive, but it's part of their culture they're growing up. And what did they tell me? Oh, so-and-so's really good at this game, Dad, and they can beat this and do that. And I try to listen in. Even if I don't know what game, I understand the concepts. I try to be engaged enough to understand what they're talking about. You know, like Roblox or you know, Minecraft. I play Minecraft. I've been on Roblox. I mean, I'm aware of what's going on. I've been on Discord. I've got a Discord. I can view what they're doing. But
Sure.
but all that said, on the other hand, I'm seeing this generation come up, and I'm going, that's what we need. We need the church to engage. This is where young people are being drawn, and I think even more COVID definitely drove that up too, because not being able to connect, but this is a way where we can connect through playing things online, because there was a lot of downtime. I think, first of all, I commend you, because I think it's awesome that you guys are doing that, and I think more churches need to engage in that. But I also see where the church would be like, whoa, this is just the age group you're doing. Definitely going to deal with more middle school through high school, and I think it's going younger though. But the other part of that is I see it's a whole different thing. And the church always is like, when something new comes, it's you know, they just don't know how always to handle it. They always like most people like to go, well, let's just see how it settles down and then we'll engage. But that's usually too late.
Right.
By then, the culture has stolen it and perverted it and twisted it and manipulated it, because that's what Satan does. Right. The idea of playing games online is in and of itself is an awesome thing. I mean, hey, I can play my friend across the TV. And the idea of making it esports, taking those kids who aren't maybe athletic, but they're really good with eye-hand coordination, they're good with games, you know, and they've grown up with them, and allow them to have an outlet and be able to reach them with the gospel. Right. Well, that's a win-win to me.
Absolutely.
You know, if not, again, these kids are going to be reached by something, right? It's not that they're going to change their world. So if the church doesn't engage their world a little bit and go where the least of these are, right? You know, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm kind of highlighting it right now, probably just because I think it's amazing. I think churches should really take advantage of it. I think they should be reaching out to you nonstop, going, Sports Crusaders, we want this esports thing, because show what's out. How can we engage this? How can we put this and make this something our church is more involved in with our students? Because we see this is the culture and this is where it's going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And these kids that don't, like you said, maybe not be athletic, but in our camps. So when we do our e-camps, we have them in a section where they're doing team building, the importance of of working as a team. They did, hand-eye coordination, different things like that, so that they can learn. I mean, it's a you can actually get a full ride scholarship for e-gaming now in college. Like, so there are college students who are now on esports teams that I can then reach out to be missionaries. So I had one campus minister challenge me on that several years ago. It said, I can't bring you athletes, but I can bring you robotics guys, and I can bring you, and they love the Lord. They can do robotics, they can do gaming, and you don't have a spot for that. So I'm challenging you on this 1 Corinthians 9:22 and the common ground, because sports is not all the only common ground. I was like, whoa. So that's probably the seed that was planted for us to look into what it would look like for esports camps. And so by the grace of God, he's opening the doors at just the right time. So. And
I imagine those that get it really get it, like myself, because they, like I imagine those that are seeing it. I don't know if I would get it as much if I didn't have I have 6 kids that are spread out, and I'm seeing this, but I'm telling you, I love it. I think it's great. I think, people listening, if you're a pastor or a youth pastor or somebody who's engaged in ministry in your church, you should be bringing this to the forefront, because this is This is an area of the culture that hasn't been completely taken.
Right.
It's an area that's new. And it's an area the church could jump in and really, I don't want to say dominate. I don't know if that's the word I would say, but there's an opportunity there of reaching young people with the gospel and taking something that's out there and really making it a really cool thing. You know, and it doesn't mean that it has to be all about, a Bible study or whatever, but we could take something where kids are engaging and make it wholesome, good. I call it like, we have an opportunity to make our own e-game PureFlix, where when people listen in and they think of like a PureFlix, which is an alternative to like a Netflix, right? Where they can watch clean, wholesome, family fun and know that, it's going to have good values in it and my kids are safe with it. Or if you're maybe a Daily Wire person that's listening and you're thinking of like Bent Key, which they just launched with all their kid programming where, it's not all Christian, but it's all going to be family friendly. It's all going to, it's stuff that, you could drop your kid and they can watch and they'll learn good values, more values, and you don't have to necessarily worry about the world grabbing and throwing in a bunch of malarkey in there. This is an area where the church can do it too. Esports is another area that right now we can engage in and take some wins in the culture.
The thing that I've observed with our tournament is that, man, this is an opportunity for the church to be the church. Show up at that tournament and just walk around and love on people. Get them a bottle of water or just volunteer and just see what the culture is like and see how God would use you and maybe just throwing some love toward one of those young adults who this is their draw. And just to show them what love is and that Jesus is real and living in you so that you can show love to them. That's all they want is to have. It's also an opportunity to bring these folks who are kind of reclused in their own homes, but we can build a community to where they can come out and meet together and play together face to face and get to know who these people are, rather than just through the media part, but to bring them together and give them a community that's safe.
Well, I think the thing that people probably don't understand is that there's actually full-time people who play games and make a living from it.
Absolutely.
They get sponsors, they get advertisers, they win tournaments. Some of these tournaments, you're talking about a church tournament, but a real tournament, they can have 500,000 people there.
Yep.
50,000 people. Tournaments, 500,000 people tournaments. There are some big tournaments throughout this country where they put them on, and the winners get $1 million to $10 million
sure
for winning these things. I mean, it's incredible. Runners up are getting millions of dollars. I mean, it's really an insane thing. There's team ones, there's individual ones.
Right.
So, this is not like when we were growing up and there was I remember growing up in the 80s and like early 90s that they would have these gaming things, but it would be like almost like a food truck. And like somebody like an MTV or maybe an ESPN, or they would have like a contest and the winner would get $1,000. Okay. Well, that's not what we're talking about here. And accolades of being the highest score or whatever on the game, right? This is where literally we got people. Well, the largest YouTuber is named Mr. Beast. At least he was. I don't know if he is. He puts some of these on, and he can have 100,000 people in a stadium.
Yes.
Okay, or one of these arenas. And the prize will be $10 million.
Right.
Okay. Second prize will be $5 million. Third prize will be $1 million. All the runner up in the top 10 get a consolation prize of $20,000 for the weekend. And I'm thinking, that's more than a lot of country singers make at a concert. I mean, if you think about how that is, and this is in gaming. And then you got to realize these things are all live streamed. So they've got an audience beyond just those who are showing up to be a part of it and joining it. Now you're getting live streaming, and you watch some of these live streams and they're getting 50 million views. Yeah. 60 million views. Okay. I mean, it is, I go back and say the enormity that is going on in this culture for one event, some of these online e-gaming things are getting, they compare it like Super Bowl numbers. Okay. They're getting Super Bowl numbers, or they're getting World Series numbers. And I don't think people have equated that over the years because it's such a young generation. The young generation knows it, but the older generation of our age, if you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, 70s, this is a culture that bits about it because you've grown up with computers and but you're not aware of where it's gone today. You probably don't know the name Mr. Beast.
Right.
So
I know he has chocolate.
he does have chocolate. Everybody knows about his chocolate bars, which is really funny how he got chocolate bars.
I know.
I mean,
My son is now going to be rolling his eyes at me. You understand this, right?
I love it. Mine too. My kids. But that is the culture. I think it's great. And you guys are still doing the other things, which obviously sports are still here to be. I mean, regular sports are still kids that play basketball. I'm doing upwards basketball right now with the church up the road. I'll spend Saturday coaching 2 teams, reffing 4 teams. I mean, it's these type of things, and we'll have, just like you said, a bunch of them are going to be anywhere from pre-kindergarten all the way up to, we got seniors in high school this year, so I'll be reffing all those and helping out. And I wouldn't want to spend a Saturday doing something else during this time of year. I look forward to it. I always tell my wife, I'm always loving it when it first starts. By the time it's done, I'm usually like worn out a little bit. Like, I need a Saturday to catch my breath every now and then. But I enjoy it so much. Those kids are awesome. I enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy watching them perform. I enjoy the opportunity to talk to them about Christ. And to think about, that this is going on. That's just me doing upwards, but you guys do these camps during the summer where most of these kids have nothing else to do anyways, right? I mean, how many kids are bored over summer? Mom, I'm bored.
Yep.
I wish I had something to do. Basketball camp, soccer camp,
Yes. And every kid needs to start somewhere. There's a lot of, right now, so much of the traveling ball and things like that. Well, there are those kids that aren't going to participate in traveling ball. And that's what our camps are for. They're for the ones that, still want to play recreationally. And, they're not going to be in the NBA after our camps. But, many of them go on to play for high school or maybe even college. But traveling ball is not for everyone. And
I'd even say
can reach out to their community through these sports events. So,
well, more and more, a lot of the traveling ball is just wearing down people anyways.
It is.
I've been talking to a lot of parents, and they're finding that their kids, by the time they get done, by the time they're hitting the late years of high school, they're burnt out on their sport because they've been playing it nonstop for so long, and or they've hurt themselves because they were trying to push them to a higher level before their bodies were ready to be developed at that higher level. When you're doing a lot of that traveling ball and doing a lot of higher end stuff, they want you to pitch faster. They want you to do these certain things, and they're trying to help these kids develop, but sometimes they're pushing them too hard, too fast, too young.
Sure.
And so I think we're seeing. I always tell people, most people don't know this. We just had in St. Louis, Adam Wainwright just retired. You realize he didn't pitch till senior year of high school?
I had no idea.
He played basketball. He was tall.
Oh.
He played basketball. He's athletic. He played basketball. He didn't pick up a baseball until I think it was the senior year. I think it was either junior, senior year of high school. He picked up a baseball and threw it, and they're like, what? So we had another guy in here not that long ago, Lane, a good buddy of mine. He played soccer almost his whole life, and then he got to high school and was at a camp, and they had him throw, and he threw left. He liked baseball too, but soccer was his first love, and he threw, and they're like, you're a lefty and you can throw 80. You have a future in the pros,
right.
And so he went pro. But all that said, I always tell people, just enjoy the sport at whatever level you are. But if you're not enjoying it, you need to back off.
Absolutely.
Your first love should be the joy, doing what you enjoy doing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't push yourself. But I mean, you look at different people who are out there. Tim Tebow played 2 sports, baseball, football. Football became his college career. He actually almost had more or just as long of a pro career in baseball than he did football.
My goodness.
So, just things that for people to consider and think about. And, I think Sports Crusaders, upwards basketball, sometimes people push them as second tier. I always tell them I'd rather, whatever you want to call it, I just enjoy being with the students, and I've never been to one of those where the kids aren't having fun.
Right.
I've been to a lot of traveling ball and high-end different types of ball, and I've watched it, and yes, they have ability, but every one of those kids have their heads down. They're not enjoying what they're doing. There's no joy in it. It's like they got a job at a young age, and they're not able to be a kid, and it goes back to the first part of what we're talking about, which is sports or esports. It's all good, but without Christ, it means nothing, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I watch a lot of those traveling balls and all that. A lot of times they got to be gone on Sundays. They're not being plugged in. And what happens to those kids later on? How many of those kids truly stay into church, truly stay with their faith? Probably very few, because if it wasn't important to their parents and their parents didn't show that Sunday and being at church was important and instilling those disciplines, that doesn't mean it can't. God can do can work all sorts of things.
Sure.
But you're definitely knocking your odds down when you're not building a community around them to see them, for them to see the importance of it.
Right.
When they're looking around the world and seeing success, and they think when their definition gets blurred of what normal looks like and what success looks like, well, success must look like having that, Mm-hmm. And well, that you may think that brings you success, but I've seen a lot of people own Lamborghinis and all of them be, in loveless marriages and trapped in lives that it was stress that I never would want in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. Well, I even know with my own dreams, my dream was to be a coach at Valparaiso University. I wanted to be a college basketball coach. And even my counselor in high school said, I see you somewhere in your future managing a recreation facility. And I was like, but I want to be a coach. I don't want to manage a recreation facility. And then it was just like, this was the biggest gift from God to say, now that you have your priorities in line, you can have that back, because I've become your first love, and basketball has taken its place. Mm-hmm. And so you can use that as a tool rather than be your God. And I was very gun shy at the beginning of, oh my goodness, I don't know that I want to get back into basketball that much, because, I don't want that to take the place of God in my life. And he's like, trust me. And I did. And here we are. I never dreamt that I would, I never aspired to be the director of Sports Crusaders, but I had a great pastor who told me after Bobby retired, if you were called to Sports Crusaders, he said, I don't think God cares hide nor hair whether you are the janitor, the secretary, or the executive director. Apply for the executive director position. And I was like, yes, sir. So here we are. And I'm enjoying the ride. It's been a great journey.
Let me ask you a quick question. Because you're not tied to Southern Baptist, do you care if it's a Southern Baptist church that calls you?
It does not have to be a Southern Baptist church.
I thought that was the answer, but I just wanted, because we get all sorts of...
As long as they'll let us share Christ,
Exactly. Hopefully, if they're a church, they are. So
right.
If they're inquiring. But yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because I get a lot of people listening in that aren't necessarily Southern Baptist or affiliated with any one denomination. So I wanted to let people know that, hey, look, if you're a church, you're a ministry, you want to get tied in to sharing Christ through sports, or have this group come to your church, how do they reach you? What's the best way?
They can reach us through sportscrusaders.org, and you can email me through the website, or you can reach me at Tricia, Tricia, at sportscrusaders.org, and that is my email address.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll make sure that's in the show notes for people, so that way they can click on the link right if they're listening to this or watching it. They'll be able to click on it. Anything that you want to add before we kind of wrap this up? No,
I think we have had a great conversation. I love having being able to talk to you about all of this and share with your listeners. And we're looking for churches to host camps. We're looking for college students to serve in the summer. So give us a call. We would love to connect with you.
Well, we want to get you back because we want to hear some awesome stories. I thought about that today. I was like, I don't want to get everything. We'll do the introduction today because, as you said, we could talk for hours. And I think that I would imagine it's not just your testimony, but you probably have seen hundreds of lives affected. As you were walking in, I showed you this old flyer that I had that's probably close to 15, 20 years old in my lobby. And you're like, that guy is now using the ministry. His kid, that kid on the, and he's got kids.
Married with his own children.
Exactly. So we could go through all sorts of stories, but, and maybe even get a college kid in here to share some of their experience. So, sure. We'll get you back in here. But we appreciate you being here. I hope people listening in now are understanding a little bit of what Sports Crusaders is, that they'll check it out and consider their church having you there. Or if you're a college student listening in or a high school student, think about volunteering.
Yes.
This is a great opportunity. You're a senior in high school and you're going to be going to college. Reach out to them. If you're a college student, reach out. Even if you're not maybe the most athletic, my guess is if you've got a passion for Christ and sharing kids, and you can at least explain a sport, you can probably do it. And if not, maybe you're an esports person, because they got all that too. So appreciate you being here, Tricia. Appreciate the opportunity to do that. We want to thank a few people before we get out of here. Don't forget to not only like and subscribe, but don't forget to support those that support us. So that's Andy McCollum and his team with Resource One. If you got any financial planning needs, make sure you guys reach out to them at 636-458-1798. We also got Chris at CS Design, who is the intro person of Sports Crusaders for my life. And Chris is awesome. His team is awesome. If you enjoy all the little really cool things that are probably part of our website and everything, that's all Chris and his team. So you guys can give them a call at 573-436-3717. They do all sorts of tech stuff, not just website, but graphic design, whatever you need. Small business wise, give him a holler. He and his team would be great for you. And lastly, don't want to forget about State Farm and Jeff Earhart. We appreciate Jeff and his support for this. And you can reach out to them with any of your insurance needs at 314-821-5333. If you're wondering today where Chris or my cohort Scott is at today, Scott is doing some training for I believe rookies in Major League Baseball. So they called him up last minute and needed him to do some stuff. So he is out today, but he'll be back at next episode hopefully. And we will catch you guys next time. Thanks for checking in. God bless. Thanks, Trish.
Thank you.
You're safe.